Hi everyone, thanks for clicking. So this video is actually a review of an interview conducted by Dr. Mercola with Dr. Thomas Lewis. So, Dr. Mercola is an American alternative medicine proponent. He is an osteopathic physician, and for the past several years he's been an internet business person. He markets dietary supplements and medical devices, some of which are a little bit controversial. Until 2013, Dr. Mercola operated the Dr. Mercola Natural Health Center. So he is a proponent for the alternatives to health and medicine that most people will never know about because they are not mainstream. They may not be effective for everyone, but they are often not harmful in the process. So that's one of the benefits to natural health. The reason for this is that health and treatment of injuries and illnesses has other options, but the pharmaceutical industry won out decades ago as a primary method of treatment. We're now starting to look at these alternatives, and in fact, we're taking a few steps back so that we can take these few paths. Living a healthy lifestyle often puts us ahead of us on the health scale, and that we are more capable of dealing with our health issues because we are starting from a healthier place. So eventually, though, there is one thing that none of us really can combat, and that is age. Such as very much in particular, and will be a very large concern for the majority of us in the future, is actually Alzheimer's disease. So in the interview that I will post the link for below, Dr. Thomas Lewis has suggested a possible diagnostic solution. So his suggested testing method is actually optical coherence tomography, or OCT. The test is non-ionizing. So we'll get into that in a moment. Glaucoma, he states that glaucoma is the Alzheimer's disease of the eye, and Alzheimer's is the glaucoma of the brain. Similarly, cataracts are a manifestation of your innate immune response against both acute and chronic infections. The brain and the eye are unable to deal with issues that arise in the blood because they are heavily vascularized or avascular and have very few compensatory mechanisms, if any. So Lewis explains the general theory for using the eye as a biomarker for systematic disease in that, he quotes, "When you look at disease in the allopathic system, they're either healthy or you're sick, but we really rely on a continuum of health." I say we live in 4 different continuums. He says we live in 4 different continuums. Determinants of health, lifestyle, risks, and things like that. For physiological health, we measure blood, stool, urine, but for pathology, we measure, which is largely ignored. They do ultrasounds, MRIs, CT scans, etc., that are used to assess tissue changes. The eye happens to be particularly good at that because the eye is transparent, and the methodology used to measure the eye is low cost and non-invasive, but a highly precise and accurate test. So, for example, the optical coherence tomography, OCT again, is much more precise at looking at microvessels, capillaries, and etc. compared to an MRI, because the wavelength of light they use to create the interference is a much shorter wavelength. So it's more like a millimeter wave versus lower frequencies. In other words, it gives more detail than an MRI. They go into a possible link for COVID treatment. The blood work for COVID testing and measurements and Alzheimer's is actually, they've determined that there is actually quite a bit of overlap in them. So they also bring in the previous SARS illnesses, so Ebola. Children that contracted Ebola but survived, obviously, actually developed cataracts, which would be unheard of in children, but it's obviously due to severe physiological strain. Macular degeneration is also linked to severe infections and disease. So physiological health and tracking with a feeling of well-being, they're highly linked. And they suggest using actual blood markers. So just getting a blood test done every once in a while and checking for different biomarkers to see where you are on the health spectrum. If we observe the body as a whole, we can discover more about how it will combat disease and infections. So Dr. Lewis suggests doing a uric acid test, which is often a sign of hypoxia. This could be used for COVID testing in the hospitals. He states that the treatments are often not virological, but bacterial, because they are concerned about your vessel. and how full that is, or how high you are in your inflammation is, and trying to modulate that. So they have, we all have subclinical bacterial infections that are a burden to our health systems, which takes up some of our immune bandwidth, or immune system bandwidth, as it were. The immune response to COVID isn't special because our immune response is innate and adaptive. So we're going to react the same no matter what. Yeah. So thank you for sticking with us. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe to us on BitChute and LBRY, and I will post those links below as well. And don't be afraid to open up the debate and be willing to have a conversation with individuals and people en masse. It's the only way that we will actually truly understand and grow as a population. And stay safe out there. Thank you.